Welcome to Flip Lesson 31 for the 5th grade. Today we are looking at a couple ideas today. First of all, we want to do a quick review of lines and how lines work together. And then we're also going to talk about some new concepts about what happens when lines start crossing and different things like that. So we start by looking at the different rectangles. A line that has endpoints we would call a line segment. Okay. A line that has one endpoint and an arrow pointing in a particular direction, called a ray. And then, of course, two arrows is our definition for a line. And so we have those different ideas. Now today we want to talk about some new concepts, and those new concepts have to do with the rectangles underneath. The first idea we want to talk about is the idea of parallel and how our three ideas, line segments, rays, and lines, can all be parallel. Parallel means that the two lines are going to run side by side and they are never going to intersect. All right? And so in this case, as we're looking at the box above, we see that there are two line segments, right? There's endpoints, so they must be line segments, and that they are parallel. They don't intersect, and they never will, right? And so that's our idea of parallel. Our next concept has to do with what we call intersecting lines. And there's two groups of intersecting lines. The first group of intersecting lines forms a right angle in all four corners of the intersection. And we call this perpendicular. Perpendicular. Okay. And so that's where the two lines come together and form right angles, which is symbolized by that little square in the corner. And so in this case, our picture shows two rays that are perpendicular intersecting rays. And then the last type of intersection is where the angles do not form a right angle, and so we would call that an oblique intersection. And that means that the angles that we see here in these different areas, they are not right angles, and so it is considered an oblique intersection. So we have these new ideas. From here we can move on and talk a little bit about angles, which is really what we're seeing once we get intersecting lines. The easiest place to start with angles is to start with the one right in the middle. And right in the middle, we would say, is our right angle. And our right angle has a measure of exactly 90 degrees. And so we can make a quick copy of that, and we can drag this down. So when we think about right angles, it is an angle that is 90 degrees, and that's the only thing it can be. All right. From here, we can talk about our other two. We have obtuse and acute. Acute angles are going to be any angle that is less than 90. All right. So any angle that is less than 90. So it's greater than 90. All right. So we don't know what the angle is necessarily, what the measure is, but it's going to be less than 90. And so looking at the picture, we can see that as I move to the right, you can see the numbers decreasing. So any angle, any of these numbers are going to be all the way down to 1 are going to be acute angles. So 1 all the way up to 89 are acute angles. Most commonly, we think of acute angles like that, small, acute. You can think about that to help you remember your acute angles. All right? So there's an example, which means that if 90 degrees is right and less than 90 is acute, that means greater than 90 must be obtuse. So anywhere from 91 all the way up to 179 is going to give us an acute angle. All right. And so, or sorry, an obtuse angle. misspoke there. Obtuse angle. So I'm making an obtuse angle there, and it's kind of off the screen now, but you understand. And remember that the angle is going to be greater than 90 now. Greater than 90. Okay. Then the last thing we can look at and talk about is this one right here. Well, what happens when you have 180 degrees? Usually we just call this a line or line segment or a ray, but sometimes it's known as a straight angle also. And so we have those concepts that go into this. Okay? That is our lesson for today. Hopefully it's a review type lesson and we can go on. For your sample, go ahead and draw an obtuse, an acute, and a right angle very neatly on your paper. That's lesson 31.